Hello, how's everyone doing? My name is David Santiago Perez, and I'm doing this video. It's a blog that I would like to make on the journey that I took on a task that I had on creativity and pedagogical mediations. Now, we're gonna talk about three things. The first one is why I decided to make a blog, and particularly this kind of blog. You can see I'm part of the browser. Second, we're gonna talk about the ideas that I found most relevant and that I particularly thought had a really big impact on me. And number three, we're gonna just do a quick summary of the activities that we just made and that I particularly put a lot of care into. Now, number one, why did I decide to make a video blog particularly? Now, this task was for me a journey, as I said in the beginning, and I feel like I need to talk about it and that you see me talking about um, on many instances and on some subjects that I feel like there's not a much more better possible of talking about it without actually talking about it as compared of sending a written document or showing you a presentation that seems a little bit ungenuine for me. And so I thought making a video will be perfect. Then I thought, but okay, what kind of video? How could I make it more creative? And so I'm right now using a lot of programs. This is very new for me. And it's also something we talk about in these activities, assuming new challenges to be a better pedagogical mediator. And so I'm taking this challenge of um, getting new tools and putting them into practice. So that's the reason of this video. Number two, some of the ideas that I thought were very compelling, in my opinion, is number one, creativity. Creativity um, begins with the idea, it's the very basic idea, that creativity is just doing things differently. And we saw in the mini documentary of the APA how teachers, students, directors, all of them say creativity is just doing things differently, thinking about new ways of doing something. And well, there's Richards in his essay on creativity in education, because let's make a quick parenthesis. Creativity in education is a whole different subject of creativity in philosophy and creativity on psychology, which are much more precise to talk about. So in this case, creativity in education. Creativity in education is limited in a way that we need to think a lot about our students. And we need to think particularly on our students' needs. So this changes the paradigm. Are we doing creative lessons just because we want to be creative, just because we want to make something different? No. We want to create something different that applies to the needs of our students. And I want to make a little comment on this. I saw a couple of, no, I'm, let's just be honest. I saw one student who did not agree with this. And it's okay. We can have our differences. But he assumes that creativity, in my opinion, for him, for me, creativity is just a rebellious act. And I explain, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it is not just doing things differently, it is just doing things differently, but in a way that are socially acceptable. And that's just the case of education. We cannot just come with a radical idea that's crazy uh, in our lessons. So that's the little parenthesis on creativity. Something I found very interesting as well was how we dealt with experiences instead of activities, and how some of these experiences are named experiences because we just don't create activities for the classroom. These activities have an impact outside the classroom. And so they're called experiences because first it happens in the classroom, but the student is capable of uh, reaching out outer spheres of knowledge, and maybe they can apply this knowledge with the way they interact with their families, with their friends, in their future jobs, and even has an impact on their emotion. That was very interesting for me to learn. These two were the two most impactful ideas of this activity. Now, let me show you what I just done. I have a PDF, but since the idea was to be creative and I'm showing it in this form, I don't want to show you the PDF. I'm showing you this. So this is the first image that I wanted to talk about, which is the one on the definition of creativity that we just mentioned. But that's not the start of the task. We start actually with the pedagogical mediation practices and challenges that I'm willing to take. Now, here I put into context the practices that I'm currently doing. I'm a teacher of Spanish. In the past, I was a teacher of English, but right now I'm teaching Spanish. And I'm at first I was very into storytelling, and so some of the challenges that I decided to take were on how could I be a better storyteller. Here I talk about the role of motivation. I think it's as well very important to keep our students motivated. Teaching reading, which is not teaching reading just because it's an individual competence to teach, but how could I make reading an integrative component of all the skills that I teach? And finally is alternative assessment. Now we need to stop standard testing. Some of these standard testings are open-ended questions or close-ended questions, which is worse, in my opinion. And also, I'm backed by Richards, Jack Richards, the teacher from Singapore. And so, alternative assessment consists of how can I make sure that I see knowledge in my student without considering standard testing, which is absolutely horrible. And so, it's just keeping in mind that we're following a route, we're following a journey of knowledge, and I'm applying that into a form of experience instead of testing, standard testing particularly. Now, ideas for pleasant experiences in language learning. Now, in this task, we were required to make creative and extremely pleasant experiences for our teachers and for our students. I'm sorry. And so I created this list. It's like gather your students and make them do a presentation on behalf on one person they know well. This is not only improving their speaking competence, but it's as well fortifying the relationships within the classroom. And this, of course, uh, it is not just something that happens inside the classroom, but it has happened because in the past these people have had the time to recognize each other. Another couple of examples, because I don't want to make this very long. Ask your students who is the person they most admire and why. This is something you can do in the classroom, but it requires a lot of outside the classroom experience. You are getting to know your students, and your students are getting a better picture of themselves that are showing to others. And so this is very creative, and we're not just doing the standard practices of language learning. Another one. All right. Make students do a list about things the teacher like and dislike, including foods, music, and sports. So, what do my students know about me? This is, I think, very pleasant and interesting to do, and is showing who you are as a person. This is gonna fortify that relationship teacher-student with your class. So that was that task. What do most people think about creativity? As I mentioned, most people think is doing things differently, but it is as well doing things differently with a particular goal, that is, how can I make things better and engaging and inspiring for my students? Very different than just doing things differently. A new horizon. What can we say about educational suggestions on creativity? This task um, was more of a critique of the standard way of educational practices, and how creativity is limited by the way um, of our that our goals impact our creativity itself. So the goals here and the educational goals transform creativity in a way that doesn't make things different, but it makes them more engaging and more inspiring. And so you're gonna end up having better resources with your class. And finally, is what can I do to improve my pedagogical mediation? This one was very personal, and it's asking me to talk about what can I do particularly and personally to improve my pedagogical experience. So one of the ideas that I talk about is talking about the ability of recognizing my students' needs and knowing that each of them is different, and as a result, uh, they might not like the the practices that we're doing in class. So here I wrote, I generally want to improve my ability to make my students get curious about Spanish outside the classroom. In the past, I have tried to use persuasion and how it is to get accustomed to the target language when you do it voluntarily. Right now, I'm particularly talking about um, moving the inside experience of the classroom to the outside sphere. And the problem here that I face, and it's a very big challenge, is that um, most of my students only practice Spanish when they are with me. And I don't believe in homework. I believe homework is horrible. And some of my students, I tried homework in the past and it was very bad. So instead of that, I try to suggest books. Look here is this really book that you could like. Here is this very good movie. Hey, listen to this song, you might like it. And this is a very different approach, but it's an approach that still needs some enhancements to have. And so, as a pedagogical mediator, I want to improve my persuasion skills for me to make my students comply with keep improving in Spanish or English when I get back in teaching English, and they do it outside their classrooms, but in a way that is integrative. What can I do to make this future experience be both coherent in the inside the classroom and outside the classroom? And with this, I want to close my video. I hope it was of your liking, and I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Take care. Goodbye.